Hej och välkomna till dagens presentation här av Sensys Gatso på Erik Pensers bolagsdag. Mitt namn är Örjan Nordén och jag har äran att följa Sensys Gatso som i alla fall jag tycker har börjat på en väldigt spännande resa mot betydligt bättre lönsamhet jämfört med historien. Ivo, please go ahead. Let us hear.
Thank you for introducing me. I apologize for doing this in English. My Swedish is rather poor, but nevertheless, I'm really happy to be here. Today I want to take you through a snapshot of our organization and the H1 results, H1 2022. Talk a little bit about our business model, an update on our business and for the first half year, an outlook and a summary. I'll take for this presentation approximately 15 minutes, and then I think we will have questions coming from Örjan. So for those who haven't seen this chart before, this is a snapshot of our organization. We are the leading global player in traffic enforcement. It's a merger between the Dutch Gatsometer business and who is the inventor basically of automated traffic enforcement in the world. And then Sensys, the Swedish Sensys, which is actually standing for Vision Zero, which is obviously a very important concept adopted throughout the world. So these two companies together creates a very, very strong brand, and even the strongest brand, I believe, in the global automated traffic enforcement business. Looking at where we are, we have approximately 50,000 systems delivered to more than 70 countries. We have 263 employees in 7 countries, and we are supplying basically everything in the automated traffic enforcement business. So we're a total solution supplier of equipment, software and hardware and services. You can see from the numbers here from 2017 through 2021 that we're making nice progress on both the sales side as well as on the EBITDA side. So how do we do that? I mean, first of all, it's about how we are organized. So looking at the top part left, you see our group management. The group management has strategic global responsibility for finance, like Simon here in the room as well, and for technology and for commercial. I'm heading it up as a CEO. And then we have, at entity level, we have P&L responsible leaders of them in the markets, and they together have a collective experience of more than 150 years. So it really is a strong team. Equally strong on the other side is our board. So we have a professional board, mostly existing of Swedish. 4 of the 6 members on the board are Swedish, but we're really happy to have also a Dutch person on the board, being Jochem. And we have recently have a new team member, which is Francis Schmeer, and he holds an American passport. And later on, I hope you will understand why that's important to us. Quickly looking at the consolidated income statement. So sales is up for the first half year compared to last year by 17%. The gross profit is up by 45%. I'll explain later in the presentation what's driving this. And our EBIT is up by 23 million. So we see a pretty nice uptick in the key numbers for the first half year. Then when we go to our business model, this is the way we present it mostly, is that the automated traffic enforcement business starts with equipment most of the time. That equipment needs to be installed and commissioned. Then there is a turnkey project which is mainly like system integration. Then when it's up and running, it needs to be operated and maintained. Those systems generate data. The data turns into those we call events. They turn into citations or speeding ticket, for instance, and they need to be processed, and the money needs to come back to the customer, right? That's how the business model operates. On the left, you see Switzerland and Belgium. That's where we have agents in place, distributors. There we only deliver the products. They do the installation and the maintenance. Go further right, you see Sweden and the Netherlands. There we do a bit more, so we also the maintenance, and we do also part of the operation. Go far right, you see the United States, and that is where we do everything from we own the equipment up until we collect the money from the fines and we distribute it between the city and ourselves. So this is the model, obviously, where the margins are highest. And this is also very important, a part of the business we're focusing on. You can already see here on the left, you see 2 flags here, which is Colombia on the one hand and Australia on the other hand. And those are 2 cases where I'm going to come back to later on. So that's also reflected in how we invest in our software platform. So we are moving from a hardware company to a software company. And part of the investments now is rather small on the hardware part. Looking to the right here, you see the investment in our Flux, which is our embedded software platform for hardware. And then Pulse, which is a data collection and analytics platform. And then to the far right, you see Cilium, which is our back office processing software. And you can see, where the investments are going. They're going on Flux, Pulse, and Cilium, and less so on the hardware. Okay, we achieve what we're doing by actually focusing on four pillars, 4 strategies, trying to realize, or not aiming to realize, our ambition, which is to get to a sales level by 2025 of 1 billion Swedish kronor, of which 600 million would be TRaaS, Traffic Enforcement as a Service, which is the model I was just describing, being the US model, where we do basically everything. And then the EBITDA should be higher than 15%. We're already there. I'll talk about it in a minute. And as you can see by the numbers, we're executing on the strategy, and the strategy being 1, flexible hardware and scalable software, expansion in the United States with Traffic Enforcement as a Service, TRaaS, and entry in new markets, also with that same Traffic Enforcement as a Service model, and then extending the scope in our existing markets. So talking a little bit about the flexible hardware and scalable software solutions, I mentioned before, Flux is going to be our new hardware platform, embedded software platform on the hardware, I should say, and that's going to be extremely flexible. And that means that we have a embedded architecture that enables us that if we have new use cases, but also like new sensor technology, we can implement that rather quickly without affecting the architecture of the model. That's going to be a major step forward for us. Pulse is the data analytics, so that's important as well, because with the data becoming more and more important, we can actually use that data in an anonymous way, of course, not affecting personal integrity in various different ways, but it also helps our customers to understand what's going on in the field with their installed base. And then Cilium, as I mentioned before, that's where we are going to do basically everything to be able to send out citations and collect the funds from these citations. Looking at the United States, very, very important market for us. Right now we are in 12 states with 36 programs, but if you think about the size of the United States, that's actually rather small. However, we're doing really well there. We have very good customer relationships. The retention is really high. So when we have a contract which expires, 85% of the cases, it's going to be renewed. However, as I said before, there is a lot of growth potential, because if you look at the total market in the US, you talk about 24 states with an addressable market of at least 14,000 cities. So if you then look at this, you can imagine that we're focusing on the United States to grow there. So hence also a person that holds a United States passport on the board of directors, right? So we have developed a plan that is centered around a proactive data-driven sales model, and we're investing in salespeople and data analytics people in our US organization. So the addressable market, 14,000 cities in 24 states, we are targeting 100 out of that in the upcoming years. Not 1,000, not 2,000, focused on well-defined 100 cities we're going to go after. That will triple our business at even a higher gross margin, obviously. So we have a successful track record with smaller cities. We want to build on that, because that relationship with the cities is extremely important. So do not go after New York or Boston or whatever, but smaller cities, or that will be the road to success. We recently hired a new director from the industry, and we're investing 30 million over the next 4 years in fixed assets, poles on the road, and in the organization. Okay. Quickly on Tasmania, that's really important, because that's a new managed services custom will be added in the developed world. Not going to go too much in detail, but really excited about being able to take the US model to about 80% of that to Australia, which is a big step forward for us. So we're doing a lot there apart from sending out the citations and collecting the funds. Here we talk about extending the service scope in existing markets. Saudi Arabia, huge program. Successful customer relationship, we're building on that, and we're moving forward to extending the business there with new solutions. We have a tender won for point-to-point in the Netherlands, and we won a tender for speed and red light in the Netherlands, EG37 as well. And there will be a tender for traffic Verget in 2022, which is going to be a highlight because that's going to be huge, and we are in a good position. So on the business update, really, really quickly, I have a few minutes left. This is what you can also find on our website. It's broadcast on our website, so I invite you to have a look there if you're interested. Order intake up 411%. Most important is that it's 100% trust business. So the recurring business in this quarter is making up 100% of the order intake. Sales we already discussed. It's up quite significantly. Well, it's actually at par for the quarter, but the trust sales, which is the most important part, is up like 19%. EBITDA up 31%, EBIT up 325%. This is a rather nice graph to show. We're really happy with that because the profitability is now really coming through, and after we changed the business. Saudi Arabia, huge contract, 75% already delivered. So good payment behavior of the customer that has a history with Sensys in the past, but now we have a really solid relationship with this customer. And then very important for you guys as well, stable supply chain costs expected throughout 2022. So with long-term contracts, mostly with governments, the critical components have been secured. We do the system assembly in Europe. We have a price agreements in place, so 2022 we're not going to be affected. And also the war in Ukraine. We have no business in Ukraine, basically, so we're pretty good there as well. So no delivery issues and no supply chain cost increases expected in 2022. I'll skip this one. Financial position, also important to see that we now see a very healthy cash position with a solvency ratio at 76%. So quite impressive. I'm happy with that. Thank you, Simon, by the way. Outlook, improving profitability. Trust, the strategic business we're focusing on, has great momentum, and we have a strong financial position. So the investment proposition you can read for yourself here. Thank you very much. Örjan.
Thank you, Ivo. Your company has done what I call a classic turnaround from a troubled history with tiny profits. You are now established. Margins well in double-digit territory, good top-line growth, and a strong cash position. Can you walk us through the journey that is behind this? What has happened? What was the research behind? How has the organization changed? And what has been the challenges and all the good parts coming out of it?
Yeah, I think maybe the first thing, what always happens if you merge two companies, you have, have to get used to each other, let's put it that way. And when I came in 2017, I was somebody from the outside, so I could actually facilitate that process, being an outsider. So I really focused on bringing the two companies together, creating also a structure which helped us to have the entities focus on their P&L. So, for instance, in Sweden, we have Jürgen Andersson as an example. He is responsible for the entire Swedish business. Group management oversees the strategy and so forth, and we have a very strong board supporting our model. With that team, which we call the extended management team, we created the strategy. And the strategy, you've seen that, the 4 focus areas, but the main part of that is trust, recurring revenue. And that is what was part of the plans, was part of the budget process. And by getting that internal focus behind it, that's how we created, I guess, as a team, this result. On top of that, we have a very supportive board of directors in this process. So I think it's a very simplistic, basically, strategy and good execution of it, I would say, as being the main, and really a good team because of that. Yeah.
Excellent. If you take a little bit more short-term view, most companies see a lot of margin contraction right now because a lot of rising costs, and even if profits are okay, the margins are actually going down, but you managed to increase your margin. What's the reason behind this very impressive performance?
I think it's what you now see happening is that, quarter on quarter, our TRaaS business starts growing. And that is at a higher margin level. So that really contributes. If you look at 12 months rolling or the last 12 months, it's up by 8 percentage points. So it's really, really nice. Also, because if you have a high sales level and you keep your cost base relatively stable, then of course that will add as well. We have long-term contracts with prices fixed, both on the supplier side as well as on the customer side. So we're not that much influenced from growth in components. We're also not a energy cost heavy industry at all. So we don't see that impact as well. So I think it's a combination of these factors that has driven the margin up.
Excellent. You addressed the critical components, and that has all been a big issue. You're very comfortable for 2022. Are you as comfortable for 2023 as well? What do you see right now when it comes to components, semiconductors, and electronics in general?
Yeah, as you probably well know, you're looking at other businesses as well. I mean, yes. It's difficult to predict because it's factors like now ports in China closing again are affecting that. So it's really difficult to predict. For 2022, I can say that we're in a good place. For 2023, I believe we will also be in a good place because maybe the economy is easing a little bit and the demand for components will be less. But it's hard to predict, quite frankly.
Yeah, of course. Your cost level, maybe this is also a question to you, Simon, here, the CFO. Your cost level has actually decreased compared to before. Do you feel that the cost level is normalized, or has there been very extraordinary items that makes this cost level exceptionally depressed?
No, I think the cost level is at the right level now. We've seen some fluctuation in the past due to extraordinary instances, but we've been keeping it in control. And like Ivo said, every entity is focused on their own budget, scrutinized, of course, by group management, and that's the way we keep control on cost. Yeah, and intend to do so going forward.
And the same question also can be related to your cash flow. Cash flow has been strong. You actually turned your balance sheet from what I at least think a weak spot to now a very strong position. That makes it kind of easier to be more how should I say, not aggressive, but more forward-looking relative to before. Has it been any exceptional items in the cash flow, or is that also on what you would call on a decently normalized level?
Well, what we've seen in let's say the last 2 years, with huge contracts coming in from Saudi and contracts coming in from Australia, which were very big, we've built up an enormous amount of inventory, right? And we see that paying off now. We have good paying customers, and that investment of 2 years ago is coming back. And therefore we have a strong cash position today.
Yeah, maybe adding to this is that on the positive, well, maybe on the negative side, but being positive is that we repaid the vendor loan. So with the last tranche of paying the vendor loan, which is 9 million Swedish kronor, we completed basically the acquisition of Gatso Meter by Sensys. So that's also behind us, right? So that's a key milestone for the company.
So this implies actually that you have actually been forced to allocate cash flow to repay the vendor loan before, yeah. And that allocation is now not necessary anymore. So you are kind of owning your own balance sheet in a different way relative before. Is that a way to summarize?
That's a very good analysis. Indeed.
Yeah. You have been able to export. The TRaaS model started in the US, and it's a little bit different since it's you are taking on duties that is normally run by official governments or municipalities. Can you explain how has the process been in exporting the TRaaS model, in particular to a region like Australia? What has been challenges? What has been how have you managed to do this?
I mean, it goes back to maybe my earlier explanation about how we're organized. So the entities have their own objectives to grow TRaaS. And TRaaS, in our case, can be either the model in the US or similar to the model in the US, or it can be service and maintenance, which is also a recurring business. So we have budget lines which are focusing on that. So you get that focus, you get that development of plan at a local level. I think that's critical. And the second thing, of course, is sales, because you need to go to your customer and you actually need to convince the customer that that TRaaS model is actually working for them. And that's exactly how it went in Australia, because it started off like a what we call system sales deal, ended up with a TRaaS deal because of the very good sales efforts of the team in Australia. So I think it's that combination with the focus and the drive of the teams in the entities that creates this TRaaS growth.
Yeah. Interesting. You touched a little bit upon data, and I guess from when you enter the company, the storage of data was on a quite different level. How do you think about data? How does the collection of data help you in the business?
I think the best possible example I can give is for the United States, so where we will take a more proactive sales. So what we do is we take the data from a certain city, we use that data set towards a city with a similar profile, and we can actually predict for that target city what will happen in that situation. That helps politically, so for the politicians basically to accept automated traffic enforcement, which is always a discussion in the United States. But it will also show them, what this will mean in terms of revenue for the city. So that helps definitely in that sales process. That's the most important thing. And what we also do, we combine that with ready data which is available from the web, like crash data. So if you see, we can then say to a target city, listen, we see this area here, we see city or certain crossroads where the incidence levels are really high. If we would put our systems there, this would be the impact of it. So that's how we deal with that.
Another issue which you haven't mentioned a lot here is actually sustainability. But how does your business model actually contribute to the sustainability of the society?
Let me give you an example. In the Netherlands, we use, and also elsewhere, outside maybe of Sweden, we use point-to-point. And point-to-point means that you have a stretch where you want to control the average speed. It's very effective. And what it really means that if you're able to reduce the speed from, say, 120 to 100 kilometers an hour, you reduce the pollutants emissions by 25%. So this is a real impact. So I see that point-to-point speed enforcement will be the future in many countries. More difficult so here in Sweden. The reason why is that in Sweden you always have to take a picture. And you can only take that picture if that person has made an offense. And you're only going to find out if that person made an offense at the second gate, if you like. So that's more difficult in Sweden. But in almost all other countries across the world, you can introduce that model.
So do you feel that the business opportunity for you is to reduce accidents, to reduce deaths and injuries, but also that the sustainability argument helps you in the sales process?
Absolutely, and it's also the acceptability from the acceptance from the general public is really also influenced by that, because we all talk about the climate, etc. So coming now with automatic traffic enforcement, point-to-point enforcement, or low emission zones where you have a ring around the city and you can only enter the city if you have a certain level of emission from your car. That's these types of solution, in my opinion, hold much more political ground right now than a couple of years ago.
My questions are over. Thank you, Ivo, a lot for this excellent presentation. Simon, really appreciated you join us as well. And for the audience, I'm turning back to Swedish now. Därmed avslutar vi dagens presentation med Sensys Gatso och se gärna fler av våra publikationer på Penser Play. Tack!